Hey, Bat Family. Welcome back to another review. This time, we are here to discuss the Belgian Beers Race Dice. This is a sponsored review. The copy was provided to us by Grand Gamers Guild. The Belgian Beers Race Dice was designed by Mikhail Boutreau, I believe. Ammo is listed as the artist on the game. And this is a roll and write game where you are trying to traverse across the country of Belgium and hit as many breweries as you can to drink beer, taste beer, experience the country, and in the fashion of a race, complete all the objectives before your opponents and get back to the grand place in the center of the map and win the game with the most points that way. This is a dice implementation of a bigger Euro game, the Belgian Beers Race. Neither of us have played it.
No.
So we went into this game basically completely fresh, and we have definitely got some opinions on this one.
Yeah.
So let's start with our gameplay category of how does the game actually play? Now, I am going to kind of tip my hand here a little bit and say that I don't know, frankly.
Yeah.
This is the worst rulebook I have interacted with since Unicornus Knights from AEG back in 2017, and that was the worst one I'd interacted with since Tomb Cryptmaster, which was like 2010. This is an all-timer for terrible, terrible rulebook. And I ended up watching multiple videos in English to figure out where other people went through. I watched videos in German because I wanted to see how they were interacting with it. I watched one in French, and then I finally found one that was a Belgian podcast. And I will have you know, the only other language I kind of sort of speak is Greek. And I do not know what any of the other languages are doing, but I can say that of the four of us, we all play the game differently. So what we're about to describe is the way we believe the game works. You are going to have 3 colors of dice in front of you. There are 3 black dice, 4 yellow dice, and 5 red dice. And you are going to draft 3 dice from the center of the table to use in your turn. And you can draft multiple colors, that's fine, but to use them together you have to use a single color. So if I want to go 5, I need to either have 1 black 5 or a yellow 2 and a yellow 3, or 2 2s and a red 1, whatever.
As long as they're all the same color.
As long as they're all the same color, that's really all that matters. Because on your board, you are going to have essentially each brewery separated by a line with a number in it, and that number is the travel distance. And you must commit dice equal to minimum that travel distance. If you are over that travel distance, you may be environmentally negative. So the red dice represent riding on a bicycle, and it doesn't matter what number you commit to that, you're not going to ruin the environment on a bike. Now, conversely, those dice are, of course, lower numbers,
Yes.
so it's harder to get farther distances on just those.
Yeah. The red dice all have 1s and 2s.
The yellow dice, I believe, have 2s, 3s, and 4s.
Correct. Yeah. 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s.
And those represent public transit.
Yep.
So, you're still going to be environmentally negative, but it's easier to use because it is intended for that. Then you have the black dice, which are intended as hitchhiking dice. And there are 3 sides on each die that literally do nothing.
Yep.
And then there is a 3, 4, and a 5.
Yeah.
So you go further with those.
Yeah. Literally 1 of each.
Now, once you have selected your dice, you are going to move from wherever you're sitting to another brewery. And when you're at the brewery, it may have one of 3 symbols with it. So in addition to having its number, it may show a pint glass, it may show a euro symbol, and then it may also have a different shape around the brewery. So when you go, any extra dice that you have left, you can spend for actions at that brewery if you don't want to continue using them for movement. So to drink a beer, you need to spend a die and check off the pint glass. If you want to buy a bottle to carry with you, it's essentially the same action, but you have to use another die and you check off on the Euro track. And if you are looking at the score track for these actions, for each step on the track, if you have met the step for both tracks, then you get to move on the 3rd track below it. So you want to try and keep those as equal as possible.
Yeah, you're just trying to pair stuff up. So
that's really the gist of the game, is that you are going to draw some dice. You're going to move from brewery to brewery, and you are going to try and do it as environmentally efficiently as possible, because you can lose a lot of points by going over. You are going to score points for visiting as many breweries as possible. There is a scoring set up in the corner that for each of the various symbols, there is a scoring track itself. And just like the beer and euro track, if you're able to keep those in balance with each other, you can score on that bonus track. There's a lot of stuff going on this board, but it all breaks down to draw a couple die, move to a brewery. Do you want to move to another one or do something at this brewery? It's pretty straightforward. On the table, there are 3 colors of public objectives, red, yellow, and black, like the Belgian flag. And there are going to be 2 of them public at any time. And if 2 people are able to complete that objective in the same round, then great, you can both go for it. Otherwise, one person is going to claim it and you're going to put a new one out. Each person also has a private objective. They are dealt a silver and a gold. The silver are easier and worth fewer points. The gold are worth a lot more, but are pretty significantly more complicated to try and complete. And so your goal is to complete the 4 goals. The first person to complete all their goals and race back to the grand place in the center of the board is going to trigger the end of the game for everybody else. Once one person is in, you have 3 turns to get back to the center. And then if you are not back in the center, you're going to start losing points for how far away you were. That's really the game. There are special cheese powers that you can use once per game. Those are variable from game to game, but I will say I found them to be largely unused because the points they would cost you are just too high to use them.
Way too high. Like what you get for them compared to what it's going to cost you is obnoxious.
Scott, I taught you the game. How easy was it to learn? How easy did it feel for you to play after that teach?
So most people, if you've been listening to the podcast, know I love roll and write.
You do.
Roll and write is almost my bread and butter. I mean, it's one of those things that I play a good portion of the time. Mm-hmm. It's nice to pull up. Since you and I were are we playing this correctly? I know I spent the majority of my time going, gosh, I hope I'm doing this right, which definitely pulls on the fun level, but on the whole, not exactly a hard game to learn.
Sure.
There's a lot of moving parts, but on the whole, not a hard game to learn.
And on the other side of that, for easy teach, I found it once I had cobbled together what I believed were the correct rules, or rather, at least the game that we decided to play.
Yeah.
I think actually transferring the rules was simple enough because the tracks, as busy as this looks, and we'll get into that later, are very easy to teach off of. Mm-hmm. So, you want to visit as many breweries as possible. That's represented up here. So you can use the sheet to teach the game, again, assuming we played the correct rules.
Right.
Is there anything else you'd like to mention in this particular spot?
Thankfully, I think a person who is more experienced at playing roll and writes is going to have an entirely easier time playing this game and teaching this game than a person who says, hey, I like beer.
Sure.
And grabs this game.
Well, I guess we can get into the production portion of this now. I will say, as far as theming goes, it does feel like it's here.
Yes, it feels like it's here.
Because there is actually a book in the box that is all the various breweries that you would hit. And yes, they are technically labeled out of, number 5 is Siphon Brewing and number 16 is Nova Bira. And there is the logos for each of them there in this guide.
I love that. Cool. I love that. I think that's amazing. The fact that they took the time to learn all these breweries to get them represented in a game because I mean, if you are a person who that is one of your things besides board games, you're going to really dig that because maybe you'll get the chance to go to Belgium and be able to do something similar.
And I believe that these are all roughly approximated on the map on your game sheet to where they would actually be.
That's neat.
So I think they did a lot with the theme. I think it does come across here. I do like the idea of, do I want to push through and just keep visiting more breweries instead of stopping and drinking a bunch? There's some neat gameplay ideas here. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the art, I hate it.
Yeah, it's real rough.
I don't like coming off that way, but for being as straightforward as it is busy.
It's very busy.
And it has that very kind of classic Euro game, 60s European feel about it. So it works for what it's doing. Mm-hmm. But on a usability, I think it really suffers.
Yeah, I get that when you do a roll and write, you typically want it to be in a small box. You don't get big roll and writes. The problem is that this is such a busy map. Just the map. We're not even going to talk about all the other stuff around the outside of it. Just the map itself is so busy, and there's so much that you have to be paying attention to because there's numbers on the roads and there are numbers on the breweries. Because, like, I know one of the goals was hit brewery number 4, which is all the way on the west side, and also hit number 30, which was all the way on the southeast side. And so, like, you have to be like, okay, you have to be able to pay attention to those things. And that print is not big. It is really small.
It's jammed in there.
And how many times did we recount how many breweries we'd actually gone to? Because, like, yeah, I made a line, but I can't see my line because that section of the map is so busy. I'm not 100% sure I did it right.
And unfortunately, while there's a player positioning ring that you can use, so that way you can be like, oh, okay, I'm right here. It obscures
Information you need.
Just slightly bigger than what it should be because it surrounds the brewery itself, but it normally ends up covering all the roads out of it.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting there trying to play in your turn or do anything, you're having to move this thing out of the way. And we ended up just draw the line and just count, because even though the score track is just simply how many breweries you've been to, if you've been to 22, then you know that you have 22 points, but you're counting it because, like, okay, how many things did I do? Wait, on my last turn, I drank a beer and I bought a beer. Crap, where am I at? We ended up finding that we would forget to mark the breweries. So that's why we were counting so much.
Yep.
I think the iconography is very readable. I think it's representative. It works with the art, even though we don't particularly like the art. I didn't have any issue of like, wait a minute, what does this track mean? Anything like that.
Yeah, I could understand what the tracks mean because, I mean, like Mark said, that when you go to a brewery, there is 2 icons that are typically in the bottom. One's going to be a pint glass, one's going to be a euro. You can find that icon on the bottom of the of the.
And they're always
things.
located in the same position. They
Yeah.
never swap.
Yeah.
So there is that
Yes.
easy readability.
Yeah, if you go to a brewery and there's only one icon, it's always in the same spot. So if that brewery has only euros, it's always on the right-hand side, leaving the left-hand side blank.
As far as the physical components themselves, they're fine.
They're fine.
The dice are wooden, but they do what they need to do fine. They're easy to distinguish. I don't have any issues with the dice. The rulebook, like I said, it really feels like the Belgian designers took it and put it through Google Translate. I have no better assumption than that.
It feels that way.
Because I am assuming this game will play significantly better if you're a native Belgian speaker or able to read that Belgian rulebook. In the box, there's English, French, German, Belgian, maybe Italian. There's 4 or 5 rulebooks in the box. And then there's the beer guide as well. The sheets themselves, I agree with you, Scott. I think they're too small. I also get a little frustrated that they're only one-sided.
Yeah, but then, like, also sitting here thinking about it, you're marking the map, like you're marking your lines. Could you imagine having the backside and
that's
having
very fair.
already, because it's already a busy game. Like, if we were just doing simple math, sure, the back side should have something on it. But because this front side is so busy, you can't have a backside.
Sure.
Because, oh lordy.
That's a really good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, one of the things that I don't understand, like the iconography. So some of the breweries have symbolism around them. Like one looks like one's a hexagon, one is a meeple, one is a star. I get that you want to have a distinction, but couldn't have been color or simple shapes, like a triangle, a bigger circle,
Yeah.
a square. You know, I kept going, is that a thing I got? I can't tell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the color selection does blend in just enough that, again, you're going to be staring at it. And,
Yeah.
wait, what did I do? And then it comes into, am I actually here because of the size of things? I hate going at this game this hard because I played it, admittedly, I played this a bunch. I played it a lot solo, and as rough as the rulebook was for teaching you, it was
Just as bad for solo.
like, I want to snap this pen in half. I was so mad. It
And
was
that's rare.
infuriating. The solo rules might be the worst of a rule set I've ever read, just hands down, because I'm already going off of a hard to read, hard to use, hard to parse rule set, which has all these contradictions or missing rules or anything else. And then I add in a full secondary set of mechanisms that are operating on rules that I am not entirely positive what they are, and I am not entirely positive what this opponent's doing. And it's a shame because they actually managed to do a really good reuse of components, where on the goal cards that the opponent's going after, they're picking dice based on a certain selection that is on the back of these cards. When I taught you, I'm like, just ignore everything on the back of this for the solo mode. There's some good ideas that were there that are just lost in hideously bad translation. So if there were any other games like this, what would you recommend? Do you have anything that you would say that people would like about this? Because my go-to would be the Next Station games. Next Station, London, Tokyo, Paris, where it has that very point-to-point, you're going around, but you can essentially make a big circle, a big loop, because if you do it right in the Next Station games, you can end up where you started. That's really the only direct comparison that's coming up in my mind, but I also play significantly fewer roll and writes than you do.
Oh, boy, let me think. When it comes to roll and writes, I can think of plenty of games that I'd much rather turn a person towards.
Sure.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money when you sit there and you bring up Next Station. I think that's a great series of games. It's hard to sit there and be like I would tend to veer people away from this. There's so many other games that, especially when you're in the roll and write space, where you play roll and writes because they're typically simple. Like Paper Dungeons was not simple, but I still like it. It still functions more as a game. We don't know if we played this one. We knew at the end of playing Paper Dungeons, we played it right.
But I think if we're going to use those two as a comparison,
Sure.
I think what helps is the theme integrates well enough into Paper Dungeons that even though I did not like that game, I could still appreciate what it was trying to do. I think where my biggest frustration here is there's not a lot of beer alcohol based games.
No.
And there are even fewer that people really enjoy. And so when you sit there and you say, hey, we're going to look at a country specifically known for beer,
yeah,
and that there's so many breweries, and we have this framework of the brewery guide next to us, and like you could do some really cool things. Yeah, I can't possibly look at anybody and say, hey, you're a beer drinker? Try this game.
I can already tell you what would make this game better, and I'm gonna pitch it to you, and I'm gonna sit there and you think if I'm correct. All of the scoring mechanisms need to be on a dry erase separate thing off of it, so that map could be expanded.
Yeah.
And have the writing portion just be the map. Even if it was dry erase map, that's great, but that's cost.
It is.
But if the scoring portions were on their own separate thing, I think that would fix a lot of the problems that we had to this. I mean, rules aside,
yeah, sure.
We were getting frustrated about the whole mapping everything and making sure that our routes were right and everything like that. Because that would allow the font to be a little bit bigger. That would allow that marker where the ring is. It would be functionable because there'd be just enough of a size change that it would work.
And I think it really actually doesn't matter to track everything through the course of the game. You could do scoring at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I think that would make a world of difference. Because then, yeah, even if you kept it at this page size, you could rotate it a little bit. You could expand it out. Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. Yeah. That would make all the difference.
Because
how turn it 45 degrees.
Turn it 45 degrees. Because also it would be interesting. It would have a, this is different. It would make it more interesting, which I hate to say, this isn't very interesting. Even if they kept the same artwork, I can't enjoy the artwork. If this is a really close variation of a map, it's a really neat design when you sit there and you kind of look at it. When you take all the pieces off of it, if it was angled 45 degrees and blown up and all the scoring things were pulled off and on its own thing, it'd be a little bit better of a slam dunk.
And then you translate the rules.
And you translate the rules better.
All that to be said, I think the thing that we both agreed with, and you brought it up first, was the game just feels slow.
Yeah.
Because part of it is you're dealing with all that fiddliness of, am I tracking my stuff appropriately? Here's all the things. So I think that would resolve an enormous amount of it.
Yeah.
So with that, final thoughts. I know this one's going to be rough. And again, we really appreciate that this was provided to us.
Yeah.
We tried repeatedly to make sure we knew what we were talking about when we came into this review.
Yeah. Because we sat for, a good 20 minutes, almost 30 minutes after we were done to be like...
After we were done with all the plays, yeah. Because I took this to Florida a couple months ago, and I sat there for a couple of hours, and I played it a bunch of times. It just...
I think people are going to... There is somebody that will enjoy this game, but the rulebook does need to be fixed. We had way too many questions.
Way too many.
And we kept pausing way too many times. I like this whole idea of these dice. Like the dice, the way you pick dice is great. Yeah, I can pick any 3. So there's total of 12 dice. But if the hitchhiking dice, if they don't come up, now you're left with 9.
And it's something I didn't bring up during the overview at the top. If at any point the dice aren't what you want, you can just choose to reroll all of them, but then you only get 2.
Yeah.
But then there's interactions on the board that force you to lose dice, but you can never go below 2, and that gets in a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting. Maybe if there was a better translation and that would clear up a lot of the rules, maybe we would like it more. Currently, as it sits, it's a hard pass. It's a 3.
Okay. For me, I have to be honest with myself on this because I think the game that we played is enjoyable enough. And I think if you were to alter the various things we just talked about, this could be one that I could recommend. But ultimately, I don't know that we played the game correctly.
Right. Our version of the game, I'm giving it a 3.
And I will say, I put in an enormous amount of effort. I don't go and listen to 4 other languages worth of stuff on a game that I have issues with. But I really wanted to give this one the benefit of the doubt. And the only time I give a 1 is if I believe the game is fundamentally broken or unplayable as a game experience. And nobody should be expected to, and nobody else is going to put in the sheer amount of effort I tried to get this game to work. And so I have to give this a 1. I don't like doing it. I think there's a lot of really interesting ideas here. I think there's some really great potential here. But all comes down to the fact that that rule book is unusable. It is unusable. And so I am basically making up my own game with the components you gave me. I like what we built. I cannot guarantee that that is the game that you are supposed to be playing.
Right. And that's unfortunate because a lot of their games we've really enjoyed.
Oh, we have a couple other reviews out around the same time that we are dazzled by. I think that's one of the reasons we are really hit by this one.
It hurts. Yeah. Because we like them.
Yeah. So with that, Scott, I say we move on and we'll see if there's a second edition at any point.
And I really hope there is.
Yeah.
Because I think there are bones here. There is a decent framework that can be fixed. And I think you're absolutely right. It has to do with the translation.